live on Instagram. Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. Hi, hi, hi. All right. Let's see who the first person I see come on. The Simones. Hello. How are you? Um, First person to say hi, Sandy. Hi, Sandy. Hi, Jules. Hi,
Hello,
Nick.
everyone.
Hello. Thanks for joining us today. Hi. Hi, Tandy. All right. Ezekiel.
So you should have got a
Renee.
request from me.
Tenacious from Uganda. I want to visit
Oh,
you. Hi, Stephanie Star. Oh, you guys,
okay.
it's so fast. All right, I'm gonna accept Dr. Q. We're gonna get started. Let us know what questions you have already. If you have any first questions, let's see who can get the first question in that we can start. Thank you, Vanessa. Hi, my fellow
Hi,
Ninja,
everybody.
Florida. Another Ninja. All
Oh,
right.
India. Wow.
Dr. Q, you've been to India
Yeah, a couple times. Few times, three times, I think. Yeah.
3 times? Oh,
Yeah, mostly to northern India, to Dharamsala.
nice. All right. I don't see any questions, so you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and choose one that was sent in already. Welcome to Ask the Experts, Ask Dr. Q. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Please go ahead and start putting any questions you have down below. And the first question that I will ask that was sent in from us online was, my daughter is 3 years old, but hardly fell sick. Can SS warriors be sick free?
No, but children can be because when the fetal hemoglobin can last for at least 18 months. I watched a kid and her fetal hemoglobin didn't go away until she was almost 2. So before that, she had no symptoms. And a lot of kids just don't have symptoms until they get to be older, say 5 or 6, something like that for sure. They will have some kind of symptoms by then. Um, but you're fortunate you have if your child has sickle cell, you need to learn about sickle cell disease and make sure you're seeing your primary care physician and you have hopefully a real sickle cell doctor to help you take care of your little child. It's if you don't have a sickle cell doctor, things can get kind of sketchy.
Okay. So the answer is, the child still has sickle cell. Um, what I always try and make it a point to say is just because a child is not in pain doesn't mean they're not sickling. Just because may not be in pain right now doesn't mean I'm not sickling. So it doesn't mean that damage is still not happening. A lot of people associate something bad happening with the pain crisis, only the pain crisis, and not what the sickling that's happening behind, or I guess the silent sickling that's causing damage. So it's important to remember, just because you may not be symptomatic or you may not have complications doesn't mean you're not still sickling, doesn't mean that, you know, um, your blood cells are delivering oxygen correctly, or, all of the manifestations of the disease aren't happening. So, um, yeah, please be sure to take your daughter into the pediatrician and, if it's right for you, discuss any therapies that she might be able to start on. I know, Dr. Q, you've mentioned before starting on hydroxyurea early, to slow down damage for sickle cell. Is that what you would recommend for this 3-year-old?
Yeah, But in order to do that, though, you do have to have a sickle cell doctor
Doctor.
because most pediatricians wouldn't feel comfortable giving hydroxyurea to a little kid. But there are recommendations to start hydroxyurea before there's complications because that will increase the fetal hemoglobin, and hopefully over time there will be fewer or no complications. And what you have to think about is we've already seen huge changes in how the therapy for sickle cell disease with gene therapy. But for medications, we're not doing that great, really, because we had hydroxyurea, and now really all we have now is a hydroxyurea and L-glutamine. L-glutamine is hard to take because you have to take a lot of it to make it, if you get a
Yeah.
prescription, but it does work. People with sickle cell disease have low levels of L-glutamine. And last time we were on, somebody asked about taking NAD, which is an antioxidant. It's involved in energy production. It's a ubiquitous uh, molecule that's in your body, and it turns out that L-glutamine increases NAD. It's one of the few things you can take to increase NAD, and it's probably why L-glutamine works because it's an antioxidant. So if you didn't want to take um, hydroxyurea, L-glutamine is an amino acid, and it does help people with sickle cell. But for a 3-year-old, it'd be hard to take because you have to take a lot of it. So that could be an issue.
All right. Next question I have is any insight on eye bleeds with sickle cell SC? I've had two uh, virectomies. Does blood transfusion or phlebotomy help?
Uh, I'm not aware that blood transfusion or phlebotomy would help, but eye problems are really common in SC disease. Um, I- you, you could talk to a hematologist near you, and tr if you wanted to do, say, if you wanted to do blood transfusions, you'd have to get exchange transfusions. People with SC, their hemoglobin is high, so you can't really give a regular transfusion like you could with someone who has SS and a very low hemoglobin. So you'd have to do an exchange transfusion once a month. Um, it requires really good venous access. So if you didn't have good veins, that could be an issue. And you also have to have somebody who can do it. And depending on where you are, there may not be anybody who can do exchange transfusions for sickle cell. People have started hydroxyurea in people who have SC. So that's a possibility. Um, and that increases fetal hemoglobin, and it can, with people with SC disease, it can modify their disease progression. But in terms of eye disease, that's really a very difficult scenario. So you just have to make sure you have a good doctor. A retinologist is who you should be seeing, not a ophthalmologist or retinologist. Um, they specialize in diseases of the retina, and uh, eye problems for people with sickle cell disease are retinal problems. So that's somebody who you should be seeing.
Yeah. And just full disclosure, guys, I actually got diagnosed with retinopathy late last year, December, and I have SS. So, eye problems are, they're, I guess, more predominant within SC, but they can occur in any genotype. Um, if y'all have questions, I had a needle in my eye, guys. So if you have questions, let me know and I'll tell you all about it. It was traumatic. Um, all right. Next
Yeah,
question.
so you should
Oh,
be checked annually for retinopathy, irregardless of what. As the older you get, the more important it is. So you need to be checked for that, especially if you have SC. The youngest kid I saw with retinopathy was 12 years old. So if you have a son or a daughter with SC disease, or you're a teenager with SC disease, you need to be checked every single year for retinopathy. The sooner you catch it, the better.
okay. Um, Somebody said that I get my eyes examined every year. That is fantastic.
Yeah, good doctor.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Um, Next question I have here is I think we can answer this one quickly. My question is my son has sickle cell anemia. He's always on transfusion. Please, doctor, is that normal?
How old is he? He's a kid, right?
It doesn't say, it just says
Yeah.
my son
Well, so
sickle
so
cell.
blood depending, I assume he has SS or S beta zero thal. So if you say he's always on blood transfusions, I'm not sure what that means, but if he gets a lot of blood transfusions, he should either be on hydroxyurea or chronic blood transfusions. And if you're on chronic blood transfusion of the sickle cell disease, as I mentioned before, you should be on exchange transfusion. The big problem with transfusions, even if you're not transfused monthly, is iron overload. So people who get transfusions, whether you have sickle cell disease or not, anybody who gets transfusions, there's no way for your body to get rid of the iron. Iron is conserved in your body because transfusions are not sort of an evolutionary thing. So historic or evolutionary wise, you need iron to make blood, and you don't want to lose it. So your body has made itself so it can't get rid of iron. But the problem is iron is very, very toxic. It builds up in your liver, your pancreas, your heart, and most people who are on chronic transfusions who do not take a chelator, it's a drug to get rid of the iron, they end up having cardiovascular disease, and that's what they die from. It takes a decade or more, but it's universally fatal. So if you are on chronic blood transfusions, you need to be on a chelator like um, some of the oral chelators that they have available now. But we had a lot of kids on chronic transfusions. Most of them were on exchange transfusions, so they didn't necessarily need a chelator because we were taking out the same amount of blood that we were putting in, or sometimes even a little less. So we resolved their iron overload using apheresis.
So, Dr. Q, is it that, regular transfusions is an adult sickle cell thing and not necessarily a kid sickle cell thing?
Well, they had the STOP study. So some children had high risk of stroke, and so those children were started on transfusions, before they were 5, 3 or 4 maybe, and they
Mhm.
stayed on chronic transfusions. And there's never it had at once you get to be a little bit older, you've been on transfusions for couple of years, you can switch over to hydroxyurea. So if you've had an abnormal TCD and you have a normal blood vessels, no silent infarct or anything like that, then you can switch over hydroxyurea. But yes, young children can be on transfusions, especially if they've had a stroke or if they have stroke risk with narrowing of their vessels on an MRI. Those young people would be on transfusions indefinitely, because they might not meet the criteria to switch over to hydroxyurea. But it just goes to show, if you can prevent strokes in children who are at risk with hydroxyurea, hydroxyurea is definitely an option for every person with sickle cell disease.
All right. I YouTube, I see your questions. I'm gonna ask one real quick question, and I'm gonna answer on YouTube here. I really like this question. What points should you consider before marrying? I am an SS warrior. So what are some things you should, in your opinion, consider as someone with sickle cell disease before getting married?
Well, I think, if you're in love with somebody, it doesn't really matter if they have sickle cell trait, right? But you should be aware of your partner's sickle cell status. I mean, if your partner has sickle cell trait, then you have an increased risk of having a child with sickle cell disease. Um, you should also consider the fact that if you're a woman and you're getting married and you plan on having children, you should realize that there's a, a woman who's pregnant has a is at high risk for complications of pregnancy, which in this country, if you're Black, you're at high risk right off the top. So you're really at high risk if you have sickle cell disease. So if you're planning on getting married and you think you're going to have children, you have to kind of in the back of your head think, well, if I get pregnant, I'm going to have more help than other people who don't have sickle cell disease. Um, I think you also have to think about your partner, because if you have sickle cell disease, things are going to happen to you, and you have to have someone who's really supportive, who's willing to take you to the hospital, who has the ability to maybe take a couple of days off work so they can help you when you're sick at home or whatever. Uh, you're not dependent on people, but you do need help off and on. If it's forever if you're married, usually, or hopefully. So you got to have someone who understands sickle cell disease, knows what they're getting into, and doesn't get cold feet, like you're married for 3 years and someone says, hey, I never thought it was going to be like this. I'm out of here. You got to have someone who really loves you and wants to take care of you and will put up with whatever comes your way.
Absolutely. And I've been married how long? For 12 years now? 12?
Yay.
I think so.
Congratulations.
I think maybe even 13. I'm not sure, but I've been married for a while, guys. And I agree with everything with Dr. Q says. A lot of the thing is you don't know what you don't know, right? And so you're committing to what you don't know. And so this person definitely has to be open for like the spectrum of everything. You could be super, super healthy and like, you might have come come had a conversation about sickle cell and it's like you're level setting them, right? But your health might be great and your partner might not have to be with you in the hospital, or you might have that conversation. You say, I'm barely in the hospital. And then in 2 years down the line, you're in the hospital like every month. So you have to level set them with that broad range. And then one thing I'll also say is, you're changing, your health changes as you get older as well. So I'm like I'm dealing with stuff today that I didn't deal with when I first got married. Um and a lot of it is like, I don't know if this is TMI, but like my hormones are and like what else? I started this therapy and like it just put me in a lot of pain and so I complain a lot and luckily my husband is like he's cool with it, right? And so so you really have to pick the right one. You really
Yeah.
have to pick the right one. And like for the ladies, make sure the guy is obsessed with you because that's the only way it's gonna work. I'm not saying that my husband is, but like I almost feel like the guys have to like you a little bit more than you like him. Anyway, That's you need to hear it. Um,
Cassandra's husband seems pretty laid back. He looks like he could handle just about anything.
yeah, so I'm a catastrophizer and he thinks everything in life is going to be fine. He's like that type of person. He's just like, be happy. And it's like, okay, how am I supposed to be happy? Like, like it's more complex than that, but he's like simple with it, like, just be happy, like life is good and all of that. So we balance each other out really, really well.
Yeah. Yeah, you
So,
got to have a balance.
yeah. So yeah, that's some of my marital advice. I told my husband right up front. I was like, I have sickle cell. And he was fine with that and yeah, the rest is history. So,
The other thing about sickle cell disease, you don't look like you're sick. I
mm-hmm.
mean, if you, and in fact, some people say that people with sickle cell disease look younger than they are for some reason. But you don't look sick. You're not sick all the time. And so people and when you are sick, no one sees you because you might be in the hospital or you're at home. So people don't realize what sickle cell is all about. But
Yeah,
they
and then
need to
also
know if you get married to them, and they have to be like Cassandra's husband. They can't be someone who's a catastrophizer, who everything is, oh my God, what am I going to
yeah,
do?
because
Her
if there were
husband
two of
isn't
us in
like
that
that.
relationship like that, that's not gonna work.
No, no.
Um, yeah, yeah. So
And
there's
I know
a
someone who's 75. We do both know her, and she's
yeah.
been married for, I don't know, how 50 years or something. I don't know. But her husband is very chill, kind of uh, quiet guy who can put up with the kind of things. And she's doing very well at 75. She's on hydroxyurea, by the way.
One thing I'll say also in a
Hi,
relationship is
Nivea.
you have to give grace to your partner as well. So like
Yeah,
if you tell them one thing about sickle cell and they forget, like Dr. Q says, they don't always remember that you have sickle cell because a lot
right.
of us carry it so well that like visually we look fine, and so you have to remind them, you know hey, I have half the blood you have, I'm tired, like let me go ahead and rest. Like you have to remind them, and eventually it'll get to, but you have to be patient because I hear couples break up sometimes because somebody wasn't patient enough in the relationship, and so patience is a key to you know making all of that work. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
And the other thing is you have to appreciate that if you have sickle cell, your partner is it's not easy for them either to see you be sick. It's very scary, and it adds some stress on the other person as well. Because nobody, if you love somebody, you don't like to see them sick or have things happen to them.
Yeah. All right. From YouTube, I have here. Do we know if puberty or growth contribute to pain crisis? My son is 11 years old, started hydroxyurea several years ago, and it helped reduce episodes. So does puberty
I think as
and
people get
growth?
older, they do have more problems with their sickle cell disease. And I think puberty, you're growing much faster. A lot of things are changing. So you could sort of expect that during puberty, you're going to have more problems. You really have to it's a weird thing because during puberty, you're really not an adult, even though you look like an adult. So it's kind of, and yeah, everybody who's been through puberty, I don't have to tell you what that was like. But, and then when you get to be older, when you're in your middle 20s or whatever, things kind of calm down a little bit, and then you can take better care of your health. The other thing is people in puberty, they don't want any help. You say you got to take your hydroxyurea, and your kid might say, no, I'm not going to take that. I don't need any drugs. I'm fine. Um, and so if you're not both on the same page, I would really recommend you talking to your pediatrician or have some kind of talk to a social worker so that you can help your child with sickle cell do well. Kids go through puberty, it's difficult. They want to be on their own. They don't want people telling them what to do. So, yeah, but you need help. You can kind of get away with it with a kid who doesn't have sickle cell and hope that they don't get into any trouble. But when you have sickle cell, you've got to be on the same page with your kid and you've got to help them out. And parents who of children who have sickle cell are very kind of hovering. They're worried, rightly so. And during puberty, kids might not like that. They may not like their parent telling them, "Hey, you got to do this, you got to do that, wear a coat, drink fluids, da da da." And I think Cassandra knows about that. Her mom spends a lot of time telling
Oh,
her
I
to.
do. I do all too well. Just the other day, I was flying somewhere. She's like, "Are you dressed in layers?" You guys, I'm 37, I think. 37. She's over here and drink lots of water. That's a sickle cell patient for you, or parent. They never stop.
No.
But I'm probably the same parent to my daughter too, so. Um, all right, guys. I have to go. I have to go, guys. I'm so
Oh
sorry
no, it's
that we
not
had
to,
such a
it's
short
one
session
minute to
today.
11. This is the
Yeah.
shortest
This is
session.
the shortest session. I am so sorry. But we will be back next week. We're adding in an extra session because this one was short. And I'll talk with Dr. Q, see if he can do, anything
Yeah, I
else.
can do it. It's Valentine's Day, actually.
And then there'll be Valentine's Day, probably do a giveaway.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Yeah, so that's me saying sorry to you all for such a short session today. But thank you guys so much for joining us. Dr.
And
Q, you gotta,
remember, you can ask Dr. Q if you go to Sickle Cell 101. You can ask your questions to me personally by asking.
all right. Well, thank you guys so much. Take good care. Happy Friday. Mwah, 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 mwah.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye, everybody. That was short. Oh my goodness.